Hello, Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Uzair and I'm part of FAANA Executive Board. And today we are gathered here for the 18th session in FAANA Webinar series, which is going to be about conflict resolution. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Rehan Hamid, and he is a technical program manager at Google. And he will be talking about conflict resolution, both in professional lives and in personal lives. But apart from that, our distinguished guest today has another very important, thing about him, which is he's also one of the founders of FAANA, which the organization we have all, gathered today under. FAANA, as you know, is FAST Alumni Association of North America, and we have been involved in various initiatives helping alumni connect in North America, as well as helping deserving students with financial aid and scholarships back home in various campuses of FAST, as well as supporting various research initiatives and many other opportunities across various campuses. Without any further ado, I'll hand it over to Mr. Rehan Hamid. Rehan bhai, if you can quickly introduce yourself and just give us a quick background about FAANA, how it came into being before you actually start your session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Zaire, and thank you, FAST Alumni Association, for giving me the opportunity to talk today. Definitely, I can talk about about FAANA all day long, because this is one of the things that I was part of in the very beginning. I'll give you just like one or two sentences about FAANA, so that people get to know about what's the main motivation behind establishing such an organization. Basically, this was started back in early 2000s, where I started doing some of the things just by myself, and then some people also got together with me, and then we established the organization more formally in the state of Washington. I think in 2007 or 8, I forget. But the main goal behind setting up this organization was to create this culture of learning and growth, and establishing the lifelong relationship with alumni association and university, so that we can actually foster a culture of learning and growth, and also giving back. So my one liner to you would be that in whatever capacity you can, please give back to the community, and especially our FAST community. So this would be something that we all are working towards, and this series is also part of it. A big part of it is helping deserving students who want to learn and who want to actually grow, but they could not because of their own constraints and things. So yeah, whatever capacity you can contribute, whether your time or money or however way you can, please do so. And today I'll do my part a little bit in terms of explaining some of my learning in while in the work situation and in your regular day-to-day life. So basically, my goal today would be to explain a framework of resolving conflicts in a professional environment or in a regular life, while you're building trust with the people that you're working with. So because trust is a long-term relationship, which would allow you to work more smoothly and work better with your co-workers. So with that, I'll get started. I have a little challenge here that I need to click on my different screen. So anyway, so basically what we'll do today is we'll understand what conflicts are, what are the different approaches, we can how these approaches can help resolve conflicts. And there is one framework that I have learned over the years, based on reading books and my own experience, that I want to share with you. Hopefully that will be helpful. And there are some further readings that I have collected, so that you can read those books and so on. Um, in addition, we have, I mean, I would like you guys to actually ask questions, because questions are probably more important than me just talking about the framework and the resolution and so on. So we have set up some, a fair amount of time at the end of this short presentation to talk and discuss about these various situations. In addition, Uzair has also collected some of the questions that people have submitted prior to this talk, and we can go over some of those as well. So let's begin. So the first thing is, like, what is a conflict and why does conflict happen? Basically, if you look at it, conflict is just a difference of opinion. So many times, what happens is that you come across people who have a different set of perspectives than yours. And this happens because they have their experiences are different, their learning is different, and the paths they have traversed in their life is different. And therefore, their perspective about things is different, which could just be a blind spot on your end. And similarly, the same thing can be applied to the other person as well. And therefore, you come into this situation where on a certain topic, you talk about from your perspective, and the other person talks about their own perspective. And there's a lot of opportunity in it about learning, because that way, if you think about it, it is a different perspective is exposing your blind spot, and therefore there's an opportunity to learn. And it's not always bad, because this is just a frame of mind which gives you an opportunity to learn and understand what the other person's perspective is. Um, the okay, is that going? Yeah. Um, so that's the opportunity there. The other thing is, like, when you so how does this conflict actually start to happen? So this is the difference of opinion is just a starting point, and from there on, conflict can actually get a little bit more intense if you have a trust deficit between the parties who are talking about a certain concept. Trust deficit could happen many different reasons. One of the reasons is that maybe you have started working with this person new. He's new person in your life, or he's new person in your circle of influence, and therefore, if they want to actually do a thing using a certain a way, or their approach is different, and therefore you don't in a way you don't have a complete picture of how they want to accomplish a certain task. And therefore you can start to talk about, I would like this to happen this way, or I would like to do or to take this approach, and you have just so much focus on I, that the other person actually starts to feel that this is some sort of a him versus I, or her versus I. And therefore there is some sort of a win or lose situation that starts to creep up, which is a dangerous preposition to be in, because uh, when when a win-lose situation becomes such an apparent aspect in your conversation, at that time the guards go really high, and and communication actually breaks down. So which means is that what other person is saying, you may not be really understanding what they're saying, and similarly what you're saying, and they may not be understanding what your perspective is. And therefore it starts to kind of you remain on your own positions, and then egos also come into play, and therefore the whole situation actually takes a, a, a turn which is not desirable, right? So you can probably, as I'm talking about these things, you can actually relate to many of the situations that you might have seen recently in your environment, in your workplace or otherwise. So how do we change this, right? Because you don't want to be in a situation um, where where it's not a collaborative effort, and it's more of a like you versus I and so on and so forth. So therefore, there are certain things that needs to be changed. And the number one change is the objectiveness. When I say objectiveness, what it means is that we need to find a shared goal, because if you are working with someone on a project, that means there is some things that you want to deliver, or there is some things that you want to achieve, and therefore we need to understand what that goal is and talk about the goal rather than talking about anything else, right? So for example, when people come into this conflict situation, it becomes harder for people to understand or keep in mind what are they working towards. So finding shared goals is very important. And in that, what happens is that if we reach to that goal, everybody should win, right? So it's not about like you win or I win; it is we win. And so that is a and that is one of the things that should be in consideration as we are talking about a certain perspective. Um, then uh, then other thing you might have seen is that um, when people are talking about something and they say, you know, you said this and I said this and she said this and he said this. So when you become in that sort of a conversation, then also the conflict actually gets even further. So therefore, when you're resolving a conflict, separate people from the problem. So you could actually, as an example, you could say that, okay, in order to solve this problem, we have option number one, option number two, option number three, option number four, without saying that who brought this option one and who brought this option two and who brought this option three. So separating people from the problem or option is a wise thing to do, because that way you can actually talk about the merits and demerits of all the different options instead of people. So that is important. The other thing that should change is your integrity should reflect in the conversation. So, for example, um, you should not become a party in this conflict. Rather, you should think objectively. As I said, think objectively about the goal that we are trying to solve, rather than becoming a party and where people say, okay, this person. Um, has a certain perspective and he or she does not want to change from their own perspective. So you become a leader when you establish an integrity to say, okay, I'm a person who is looking at a problem more objectively. And then also, as I'm talking about becoming a party, um, you talk about things, change the frame of mind. So for example, um, glass half full, half empty. You example is a very classic example where, if you want to talk about glass half empty, that always takes a negative connotation in the conversation. But if you were to talk about glass half full, then your conversation is at least neutral, if not positive altogether. So talking about the demerits or the constraints in terms of negativity would also impact the conversation. So always try and talk about in a positive or at least a neutral frame of mind. Secondly, also, as we talked about, when the conflict happens and why conflict happens, your body language and your tone of voice actually plays a big part in terms of resolving conflict. For example, you're having a conversation with someone, and the way they are, their body's leaning towards you versus how their tone of voice is, it all basically gives a lot of meaning to the conversation, and therefore this needs to be much more positive than anything else. As you show your positivity in terms of your non-verbal cues, in terms of the more verbal cues, you want to give the other person the perspective that you're actually hungry to learn. You are curious. You want to know what their perspective is. So because these things actually make them the guards make the guards go lower, and people will be much more open to talk to you instead of any other non-desirable situations. And also the communication doesn't break down, and the relationship starts to build. And I will talk more about how each of these things can happen. So this is a general approach on what things should how we should approach about any of the conversation, and try to avoid conflict in many ways. But at the same time, if there are difference of opinion, we could take this approach to have a better conversation. Now, what should basically what are the different steps or framework in terms of taking the approach and applying this approach into four distinct steps that I will talk about. Those I call them ILAND. I meaning integrity, L meaning listen, engage, negotiate, and deliver. So these are the L, E, and D are the four very distinct steps or phases of a of a situation where you have to resolve conflict. And we will go into each of these. We touched upon the integrity part. Integrity basically makes you become a leader in the conversation, where people start to think that you are a person of integrity. You do what you say what you do, right? And then you're able to actually understand the situation, and you're able to then help navigate through this difficult situation. Let's talk about what does listen, engage, negotiate, and deliver means. And okay, so listen really means that you actively listen the other person's perspective. You're genuinely interested in the other person's position. So when you say, you might have heard, or you might have understood, or you might have been in this situation where somebody is just hearing your opinion, or you're just hearing your thing, and they're not listening, because you could tell from their interest, you can tell from their body language, you can tell from the overall environment in which the conversation is happening, that my perspective is not being respected. And this is the reason why I'm talking about not things, is because these are the things we should not do, right? But we should do the otherwise thing. Like, for example, actively listening, meaning you are genuinely interested in their position, and your non-verbal and verbal cues are actually giving them comfort in terms of when the conversation is happening. And the way to do this is that once they have explained their situation or their perspective, you really want them to you really want to summarize what you have learned. And you could only do this summarization part if you have actively listened to the perspective and understand what they're coming from. And many times you would see that your understanding first time may not be exactly what they're saying. So that's why validating is much more important, because if you were to summarize the thing to them, they would say, yes, you understood what I'm saying, and that's comforting to the other party. But if you even if you did not understand the whole situation, they would actually say, yes, you understood this part, but this is the other part that I am saying differently than what your understanding is right now. So that way, you have understood their perspective, and they know that you have understood that perspective. So which is really important, because that gives you a much more comfort that the other person now at least understand my perspective, and then we can have a meaningful conversation to either take that perspective or leave that perspective. So but that's the second part of it. um, the second step is that engagement, right? So when I say engagement, which means is that during a conversation, you establish principles. For example, if you are building a new product, right, you can establish a principle that the time to market is much more important for us than anything else. Or you could come up with another principle saying, ease of use for my product is more important. Or you could say, the my resources or the investments in terms of time or resources is limited. So you can basically establish some of these principles that these are our constraints, or these are the things that we want to achieve, um, um, by establishing shared goals. Again, establishing shared goal is super important, because when you when the shared goal is established, everybody understands that yes, this is what we are here to solve. Then having these principles actually help you meet those goals. Um, and as I said about the example of time to market, for example, if somebody wants to add, many features into the product, one thing is you go back to saying, okay, we want to deliver this product, and time to market is much more important, and therefore we cannot probably add all these features, and therefore we have to draw a cut line somewhere to say, we can only deliver 4 features versus 3 features, and so on and so forth. So um, and establishing those principles will also avoid, you versus I versus they. So it is now a criteria that you have defined along with the other party, and therefore now you have a goal to meet towards. And along the way, um, when different people have different perspectives, you're then creating proposing those options. Because now, if you think about it, now you have understood their situation, and you have understood what their perspective is, and you have understood what our overall goal is to achieve. And now you are in a much more position to take the leadership in this conversation, to take a leadership position in this conversation, and propose some options without taking into account like who said what, right? People separating people and people from the options. um, and and then again engaging them in a way, like ask them, like, what do you think? Because having the other person being listened, and then asking them, okay, what do you think? Are these all the options, or do you think there are more options? Or if these options are uh, correctly suggested here. So in that situation, then they feel much more empowered. It's a team game. It's not an individual game. So therefore, you have to be engaging with the other party, and asking them what their opinions are. The third step in, in this is negotiate. So as you have proposed these options, then the next step is to say, okay, which option do we pick? When we look at this, we need to actually figure out, um, we need to actually negotiate not on the position, but negotiate on the interest. So what does that mean? What that means is that position is something that they have taken based on the interest or the underlying interest or underlying goal that the other person is trying to achieve, right? And that's why they have taken a position. And if during the conversation, if it is not, um, uh, if it is not, it has not come out in terms of what their interest is, then that's important to find out. So I'll give you an example in your workspace. For example, if you want people to, test a piece of code, for example, right, or test a feature, then your interest is to ensure that the feature is being tested properly and it's a high quality feature. And maybe you're talking with somebody in the QA and they have a certain way of testing. They have a certain way of testing, or maybe certain tools they want to test. So your interest is a high quality product. You should not. So that's your interest. Um, but if you took a position of saying, okay, use tool X or use tool Y or do this to actually test it, that is probably a wrong place to negotiate yourself. So you want to negotiate on the high quality test, high quality feature, feature. Rather, how they test it, what tools they use, what process they use, you're probably not so much interested in it. So that's why you need to understand what your interest is and what you're interested in, and negotiate on that. Negotiate on that. Which is another example is like if you want to, if somebody is writing code and they want to take one approach versus the other approach. So both approaches could be valid, but your goal is that they write this feature in this time frame, and therefore, if they can meet that, you should be fine with that. And so therefore, figuring out what their interest is, figuring out what your interest is. So sometimes we this is something that we lack is we have taken a position based on an interest, but there could be many other positions that could actually lead to fulfill the interest that you have. I hope that that is clear. And then again, when you're negotiating, create a win-win situation. Like for example, going back to the same example of what tools they use to test, whatever tool they feel comfortable with, as long as you get the result of a high quality feature set, you should be fine. You could influence depending upon your input in terms of what are the different scenarios that they should be testing and so on and so forth. But there is a certain there's not so much. What I want to say is that it's not. It may not be your interest, so therefore um, you should probably focus more on what results that I want to get at the end of the day. So if you have made that negotiation based on what you want to get at the end of it, you want to be able to create a commitment. So when I say commitment, meaning they they want to be able to deliver what they are agreeing upon. So in order to make the delivery, you want them to actually um, you want to identify what are the things that needs to happen in order to deliver what we have negotiated. And this is old classic. This is the classic things about delivering something. Identify who's going to do what are the action items, right? And identify when they would deliver it, and then you have to set certain milestones in terms of um, when these things are going to be delivered. So it should be a progressive delivery. it should not be like, you tell them this is what you're going to be delivering and don't talk to them in the next 6 weeks. So maybe have a progressive delivery every week, have a check-in or have something, so that they are able to then deliver based on what the commitment has been made. Okay, so again, I will kind of summarize the 4 steps. It is called ILAND. I stands for integrity, which is the trait that the leader in the conversation should have. And then LEND, L is listen, E is engage, N is negotiate, and D is deliver. So these are the 4 distinct steps in order to resolve a conflict in any situation. There are further readings, and obviously this is easier said than done. But this should give you a framework of, these are the things that I need to do or establish in order to come out of this conflict. Further readings, there are some books that I think are good reading material for anybody who wants to be a leader in this space. These are some of the books that I would recommend. With that, I think from a theory perspective, I've covered this in a short amount of time, and I know there could be many questions that people might have, so we can go over those questions, and I think we can open up the floor.
Sure. Thank you very much, Rehan bhai. Would you like to first go over the questions that we have already received, or do you want me to open the floor for?
So let's see. So let me bring up some of these questions. Actually, I should have put it in the slide, but maybe we can look into first. Maybe look into the chat window where people have asked some questions. I see some.
Yeah. Let me see. All right. I think Rafael bhai is also on, so I'll have him ask some questions. So, Rafael Chaudhary, you are unmuted. If you can go ahead and maybe ask something if you wanted.
No, I don't have any particular question for Rehan bhai, and as I said, Rehan bhai is like a founder, and thank you for doing this session for us. And I think the session I actually listened to most of it was like Rehan bhai validated some of the things that we do as, because I'm in the same space as he is, validated most of the things that we do to resolve conflicts, because when there are multiple stakeholders, and I can confirm that when I am doing these things as a product manager, then there are multiple stakeholders from the call center team and the customer service team and the user experience team, and everybody has their own point of view. And like it's more of the same thing, that it's a shared goal. It's the same, everybody is marching towards that shared goal, and everybody has to give it, like it's more of a give and take for on aspects that we need to take care of, because we need to deliver the business value. So most of the things that he shared actually are very valuable, and I'll actually take some of the books that he recommended at the end as well and read through them and see if I can get any additional value out of it. Thanks for that.
Thank you. All right. So I think the question slide is up, right?
Yeah, this is these are the questions that people have submitted beforehand, so we can talk about it. So there is one more question that is in the chat, which I would like Muhammad Siddiqui
right?
to actually, yeah.
Let me see if I can unmute him and he can ask if you want to talk about it. So.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum, folks. So I don't think I had a question in the chat. Excuse me, in the chat room. You caught me waffling down a sandwich there.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think it was more of a comment that you have mentioned ego versus ego, right?
Yeah, and I think Rehan actually he did very well. He incorporated it right there in the session where he talked about amongst the many little components that make up or initiate a conflict, because there's a whole psychology journals, etc., that suggest that anywhere between 65 to 85, I think Freud had suggested the big name out there, that about 90% of conflict of any kind, whether it be between countries in a war or two friends who just don't see eye to eye on a few things. That's another thing that Rehan had said. We come from different perspectives. We don't see eye to eye. And it's always good to have a dialogue and perhaps at the end of the day say, let's just agree to disagree. I respect. I'm not of that thought. Hey, that's it. But a very high percentage of our conflict is because of egos. It's just, I want the higher ground. I want to win. And the best of us are not able to get past that very, very important barrier. A lot of times that's what has to go. My question really is where, Rehan, when I registered, where I said, in terms of addressing conflict resolution, depending on what kind of organization, subject matter expertise, or what business area or phase of a project, could you comment on, we can't talk to each one of the areas, how do you resolve conflict, but could you comment on, would it be true that, yes, you do have to look at it and from experience and get the right people involved, because each of those areas have varying reasons for the conflict, and therefore they have a different style or approach that is needed. One more observation I would like to share, based on my experiences. I'm an ERP consultant, and I've worked in Korea, I worked in China, I worked in Brazil, worked in Saudi Arabia. So one of the things that one can do, which is another thing that Rehan did already point out, is know your environment a little. If you get to know a few words, if you get things about where you are, the culture that you're in, it goes a long way to bring down those barriers and people becoming friendly with you. A little bit of the start of that trust build happens. You're telling them by understanding their food, by understanding their daily habit, or being able to say hello, hi, hey, where's the washroom? How much is this thing going to cost? Knowing a few things goes a long way in terms of folks becoming friendly, because what you're telling them is, hey, I like who you are, I respect who you are, and it's important for me to, like, for example, when we talk about names, a lot of from the Asian side, they say, my English name is Kimmy, my English name is Joe. It's because their names are different and difficult to. Mustansar Hussain Tadar. I mean, that's going to be a real tongue waggler for anybody in the North America, right? But if you learn to pronounce the other person's name and you give a little bit of respect to your own name, like a lot of times Mo, can I call you Mo? And I'd say, Robert, I'm sorry, but my name is Muhammad. By the way, it's also Ali, which is very easy. And perhaps for me, it's a lot easier because Muhammad Ali is a known, Muhammad Ali the boxer. So it becomes easy for me. But give your name a little respect and give their name respect. Be able to pronounce them. Right? Give it a shot. So anyway, so Rehan, it's about, would there be types of conflict? Is it the organization or the project? Like when we go on a few projects, sometimes you get a little brochure handbook, 2, 3, 4 pages. Here's very important things that you need to know. You go to Asia, don't write a person's name in red. That means you mean evil for them, for example. Sometimes we're used to just using any colored pen, doesn't matter. So what do you think, Rehan?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that I believe that what you have said is all goes towards building the relationship. So I think even in the comment that you made in terms of you know, disagreeing with someone, agree to disagree with someone, is basically you have understood their perspective, right? You know what their perspective is, you understand what they're saying, you understand why they are saying what they're saying. And similarly, you know, you kind of try to make your perspective also apparent or much more understandable. And at the end of the day, if you disagree, if you agree to disagree, which is good, because now you're building that relationship. So the next time you have the same sort of a conversation, you have a conversation with same individual, then you know that this person is of integrity, and you have built that relationship, you have built that bridge with this person to actually talk about your perspective, and they understand that you would listen to them. It's not that you would just throw them under the rug in terms of your perspective. You would respect their opinion. It's all about, I think the number one thing is building that relationship. So if you build that relationship, then I think you're on a right path. And then making a decision based on the merits and demerits of the different proposals that you have thought about is the second question. But that is something, again, based on your shared goal as a team. If you have built that relationship, then you would make the right choice. Uh, in terms of I think if I understand your question correctly, you are mostly pointing towards the organizational conflicts. So for example, if you have 2 or 3 teams that are working for you, how do you make sure that there are no conflicts and they're working collaboratively, if I understand that correctly?
Yes, it's more towards organizations and engagement projects, more
Yeah.
professional level.
Similarly, I mean, you might have heard in many organizations, what is, if you look at it, there is a lot of emphasis that is happening in terms of cross group collaboration. And when this cross group, the only one biggest reason is that there's no communication breakdown between the two organizations or between the two teams, so that they can talk about things that are of interest for your company or for your bigger organization. So again, having the leaders building that trust between the two teams is basically the same. It is just more, at a bigger scale than two persons. So the leadership needs to be in sync. Leadership needs to understand what the goals of the different teams are. So again, if you think about it, in an organization, people would create teams with different charters. So in those charters, those are your implicit goals that you have defined, or implicit, directions that you have defined for the teams to actually go towards building. And therefore, the leadership needs to actually talk. They need to actually understand each other's goals, and have this conversation going where they know where is the need to collaborate. And again, it is again that building that longer term relationship. So in that case, if you have a better relationship with the other team, the teams would collaborate in a way that you wouldn't even think about in the beginning. So because they would pass on information, they would work on different, because these boundaries of responsibilities is many times not very rigid, and therefore they have to negotiate in many of those things to say, okay, you would do this and I would do this to actually build something better for the organization or better for the customer. And that's what it is at the end of the day, where you say, okay, what is it that we are delivering? You get that negotiation and commitment from the organization with this progressive delivery. I hope I was able to touch some of the points
Very
that
good.
you.
Yes, absolutely. The second part of that question actually was also, what do we do when nothing works? And I think you
Sorry,
actually
the
answered.
voice is cutting too much for me. Is it
I apologize.
for everyone?
Let me try that again. Is that any better?
Yeah, that is much better.
Okay. So the second part of it, and I think you've actually answered it already, is what do we do when nothing that we tried has worked? The team has, even people that we have conflict with, they've tried themselves and we haven't worked out. Because a lot of times when you say objectives, you do need to move on to the next step. Sometimes simply agreeing to disagree doesn't work. You have to come to a conclusion, not to say who's right, but what step do we take? So
Yeah,
you answered that already, I think, when you said about conflict resolution and escalation sort of hierarchy, different methodologies name it differently, but that being part of that framework. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, even if you, so there is another concept called disagree and commit. If you disagree, but you still commit because you're part of the team and you want to actually work for the bigger goal. Many times you disagree with certain decisions, but you commit and you work with the team on those, making sure our bigger goals are met. And again, if you think about it, these situations are not basically it's a once in a lifetime, but it is basically every day. So if you have disagreed and committed to one situation today, tomorrow some other situation would come up, and this you would have this conversation about difference of opinion, and because you have then created that relationship, you would have much better conversation.
We have another question from Mr. Bashir Khan. So I'll unmute you and you can ask your question. Okay, so I think I haven't gotten any response from him, but we'll just move on to the questions that we have already received. And meanwhile,
hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, as I've been watching this webcast since the beginning, it's like more of something related to a product or with the team, something among the team member, or maybe with uh, a bit of hierarchy. What about if like the general perspective in a workforce environment where there's a uh, conflict or maybe a kind of a disagreement with a boss? So what should be the way to resolve it, and how to approach it?
Yeah, so again, conflict could happen or a disagreement could happen with your manager also, and obviously this is a little bit trickier than having a conflict with somebody else. So again, I think the framework applies there as well. What is it that you're trying to achieve? So I'll tell you a very recent example that just came to my mind right now was that I was having a conversation with my manager, and they come up with something as a direction for the team. And I spoke with them without going into too much detail. I spoke with them in terms of, okay, what is our goal? What is it that we're trying to achieve? And so basically, when I talked about that, we established that yes, we both agree that this is something that we want to we want to actually get to at the end of the year. And therefore, the thing that we're talking about, is that part of achieving that goal? Is it on that path right now? So there could be multiple situations where you could say that, yes, that is not on the path, but it is a detour that we need to take because of these other constraints. And then that's one option. The other thing is that, yes, this is not on the path of our overall goal for the year, and therefore we may skip that. Or you could say, even though this is a detour that you're taking, but this would be a win in the long term, because our established principle is time to market, because we want to deliver something and we could not deliver based on this very, very efficient design, for example. And therefore we need to take some sort of a compromise here, which is a second best option that we would take, and that's why we're taking that detour to deliver our product. So it is again establishing that end goal and establishing the priorities for the organization. With your manager, you could also have, like, personal growth situation where you want to say that I want to work on this. I'm just picking up some guesses because these are the kind of conversations that people have with their managers. Like, for example, if there is a new project and you want to take on that project, then you want to talk to your manager and say, I would like to work on this project because of such and such reasons, because this is the goal that I have established for myself working with you for my career growth. And I feel like this would give me what I'm looking for. And then you can have that conversation with your manager. The manager could say, yes, you're right, or no, the project that you are working on, it has this other aspect that you should also consider. So basically, again, it depends on the goals that you have collectively established between the parties, and then objectively talking about those goals and getting to deliver or getting to achieve those goals. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much. It was a little more into it. I mean, for example, if you're sensing a kind of, a discrimination or maybe a biasness in all the approach from the manager or boss or, people in your higher team. So what again should be, I mean, for example, if you have tried out all the available options, one of which you just mentioned, then what next?
I must say this is a difficult situation to be in, and we if you like, we can have a a private conversation as well, and I can share my thoughts, because it seems like there is something that I need to know more a little bit to actually give my suggestion. But in general, I think you need to look at all the avenues. If it's a workplace, then there are HR, there are other trainings, there are other things. So what happens many times is that there are other implicit ways where you can explain to the team in terms of this seems like an discrimination. What is our stance as a team on this policy? If it is not an HR, HR hasn't defined such. But these days, I think you would see there are trainings on unbiased, unconscious biasness, and there are other trainings that are available through HR that you could actually, in a very, very soft way, share with your teammates, and maybe in the team meetings, or sometimes there are morale events where you have much more casual conversation where you can share your perspective. Or sometimes, for example, let's say Ramadan is coming, right? And if you see that during the fasting there might be a discrimination, you could actually share a presentation in the email or otherwise to just educate people. So it's all about education, educating other people. Does that help?
Thank you so very much.
I think we are also reaching almost 1 hour time, but I think we can take few more minutes. So Rehan, if you want to quickly, go through any top 2 or 3 questions that you had in this list.
Yeah, I actually want to talk about this, why frameworks are not taught in universities. There is a set of questions that somebody asked. I think this is a very valid question, and I want to talk about a little bit about this for a minute or so, and then if people have questions, we can take more questions. I'm happy to talk a little bit more. So I think this is a very valid question. I would, if it was, I would strongly recommend that we should teach frameworks in the universities. I think it also depends on the approach a teacher actually takes or a professor takes in the classroom, depending upon the environment. But I truly believe that these frameworks are a great tool if you have in your arsenal to really excel in your situation, in your career, in your education, so on and so forth. Because the way I look at it, frameworks actually gives you a structure around solving a particular problem. And I think we have heard of it, many times all throughout our career and all throughout our academic years, that how to solve a problem, how to think critically and solve a problem. And I think framework would give you that right out of the gate, and give you a structured approach to go share. Like, for example, this is, I need to listen, I need to engage, I need to negotiate, and I need to do this. But these doesn't happen that explicitly, but these are it's a phased or a step-by-step process to actually get to solve any of the conflict that might occur. The other question they asked was, why software companies expect from their employees to have innate knowledge regarding frameworks. Framework is a loaded word, but though in the perspective that we are talking about today is a structured approach to solve a problem. I think I personally feel that companies expect this kind of interpersonal skill from experienced people, but they also do not expect that any fresh graduates or any interns would be experts in it, and they take and they do a lot of investments in training people to gain these sort of soft skills. So I think while they want you to be hungry for learning, while they want you to be a person who can learn new things and be a good team player, I think they do not expect fresh graduates to be expert in these fields. So that's my opinion. Other people think this way or differently? Be interested to hear from what other people think. Okay, if there's no other opinions for now, maybe what the other sort of questions.
Rehan, I apologize. Sorry, I'm muting myself. I definitely second what you just said. Earlier, Nauman had also, I think it was about 4 weeks ago, had conducted a session which was quite well attended around whether we should have data science at the undergraduate level, for example. So I think it's worth a follow-up short discussion where we could gather some points, etc., to suggest that yes, these softer skills, etc., at least the introduction and suggesting the importance of it, and having a few workshops around, like even at projects at they're constantly organizing little workshops to continue to remind people and also to share new methods, new studies or new research around how do you go about this and how can you alleviate, how do you escalate, how do you collaborate, things of that nature, right? So having, where we have so many little electives, having something, either an elective or a course that is around this is very worthwhile considering. I mean, of course, then the administration, et cetera, thinks about how this happen, but making the point of view that we as professionals, as the alumni, we feel that this is a skill that we take much time to appreciate and then start to learn. I mean, change management, when I first came in, I said, what do you mean change management? The first 4, 5, 6 years when I was at PwC, I'm like, what are these guys talking about? when I got into a leadership role, I started getting hammered with, oh my God, when do I do my work? All the time I'm sitting between two people or two teams or two parts of the project trying to just get them to get along, etc. And then it dawned on me that I just don't have the skills to do this. I don't know this. Go ahead.
No, I totally agree that we as an alumni should actually advise the university that soft skills is a big part of how organizations and how teams work, and we should probably consider different approaches to give people these sort of skills. And this is, I think, one where there is some work I think going on where through the alumni for the alumni channel that we want actually university also wants us to actually provide some guidance on many of these topics that should be taught in the to the students. And I think towards the end of the last board's tenure, we had this discussion, and and Rafael can talk more about it, I think, where there's some sort of effort going on this way. And I totally agree that these skills are much more, I would say they're if not more important, they're equally important than your technical skills. One example that I have seen and observed is that if you go for an interview in these big companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, so on and so forth, while they check you or they validate your technical skills, they give equal, if not less, importance to your team player skills. So if you are a good team player, you have better chances to be hired versus even if you are highly technical, you could solve very hard problems in a quick time, and you're not a good team player, your chances of getting hired is much lesser. Are there more questions?
There is. Let me unmute Mr. Bashir Khan.
Could we unmute, or maybe that's logistically not good.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, basically, I'm representing FAANA Lahore Career Services Office. I'm manager over there. So I was like wondering if what can be done at your end to have internships for our students in these like high-end companies like Microsoft and on. What is the platform or you guys like can kind of collaborate in this area to arrange such internships?
I could answer this question shortly. I can answer that question shortly, but this is kind of out of the scope for this topic. But quick thing is that these companies have internship programs, and people should apply directly. But since there are some visa issues and so on and so forth, that's why some of these companies do not take internees from many of these countries.
All right. And how about the topic that you just touched upon? I mean, the soft skill that we should work, because I personally feel that this is the area where there should be a lot of work at the university level. But somehow, our students in particular, I believe that they lack, particularly the students who are, in that technical area, the CS area, the engineering area, their soft skills are, not that strong as compared to like students having background in business or social sciences.
Rehan, would you mind? Would you mind? It's Muhammad Ali. Would you mind if I fetch that one, if you don't mind? Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Bashir, Bashir bhai, I would suggest that FAANA who has arranged this seminar, is working quite ardently. I mean, they're working hard. There's just been a change in the board, so the new board is settling down. But they are definitely working very much towards one of the. If you were to say what are one of the top that they would like to do, this is one of them, to work with the various campuses and with the foundation to build some sort of a platform, an approach, and a method by which they can support this and provide opportunities. The other new chapters that are coming up, like I'm part of the board in Canada, the Karachi chapter just got established. Saudi Arabia. Other chapters that are starting are also very willing to work with. Well, if FAANA starts it or whoever starts it, working with them. So Bashir Bhai, there's lots of opportunity, and perhaps a session. Rafael is the president on both ends, and here Rehan and Uzair and Ahmad Malik, who is looking to put together the global alumni. So if you reach out to those guys, I think they can pull together a session where we can ponder around and create opportunities around what's the next steps towards making that actually happen. We really do want to. I would suggest that a lot of the alumni that I've talked to, even globally, they really do want to. We just need to come together and put together this platform by which we can actually better and efficiently progress this. We're going to make a lot of mistakes. We're going to Zoom, of course, new thing, but we'd like to do that. And Bashir Bhai, you really do have this board, all the other boards, Rehan here, Ozair, you have our support. We are very positive, very bullish on wanting to support folks who are still in FAST and the faculty, and those who have come out, and look to support them as well.
Okay, I
Yeah,
know
that
we are
would be really great.
Yeah, Bashir Sab, I know we are really over time, but I just want to quickly comment on some of the questions that you asked there as well, like how can we get people to get internships and everything. So as Rehan by touch, right? So we actually feel even it's a problem for outsourcing as well, because these companies have a big liability issue. So they don't want to outsource to somebody to somebody that or engage somebody who they cannot track. So generally, these opportunities of outsourcing also come through the bigger companies like Tata and everything. But what we are trying and what we have been open to is that we are very open for students to engage with us as alumni, and so that they can be part of our teams and learn from us as part of this organization. And to be honest, I run those who work with me know that I also run my volunteer engagement as sprint, because there's so much in the backlog, so you have to prioritize what needs to go out first. So it's an opportunity, and we can discuss with you how we can engage local students at FAST. In fact, one our trader from FAANA is actually in Pakistan right now, and I connected him with the FAST Lahore, Anas Khurshid, who is the president of OSAF over there, to see
Yes.
what things we can actually explore. So if you can connect with me on WhatsApp, you have my email as well. I will actually share his number with you as well. And then probably you can connect with the trader. Maybe he brainstorm some ideas. And I'm always available to have a separate session with you over the Zoom, discuss these things, and then we can plan those things out. And I'll just leave that over here, and then we can have a follow-up discussion.
Yeah, sure. We would love to have sessions and discussions on students grooming. Yes, I have, Mr. Anas' contact details as well. However, I just couldn't hear if who it was, talking. Your good name, please.
My name is Rafael Chaudhry.
Rafael Chaudhry. Okay, got it. I'll try to connect with you maybe in the upcoming week, and then inshallah from there we will take it on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Should we conclude the session then?
Rehan bhai, do you have any parting thoughts that you wanted to discuss, or
I think we're good. But at the same time, if people want to, talk about, more on this topic, I'm always available. We can chat. So.
Okay, I think that's great. Thank you for that. I think it was a good, engaging session for everyone, and I hope people had something to learn from this session. And like Rehan Bhai said, he's always available to help or mentor anyone who needs any advice or guidance. So thank you, Rehan Bhai, once again for your time. Taking out time on a Sunday morning can be difficult. So thank you for that, and thank you everybody for joining in, and I hope we get to see you next month with another webinar. So thank you, and have a good rest of your day wherever you are. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay.
Allah Hafiz.